So this episode opens with the first scene from the very first book, but slightly different. In the book, John is shown to be towering over children, playing a game of King of the Hill, which was a subtle reference to the video game, and just absolutely bullying kids. John is a head taller than all of the boys his age and is just beating the absolute crap out of them. In this scene, they opted for the loving childhood game of 5 kids on a wire log bridge thing trying to knock each other off or some shit, I don't know. John is the complete opposite of his book counterpart and appears to be incredibly small, but manages to lift a boy that looks about double his size up from a dead-weighted position. The kid is hanging there and little John just casually hoists him up, and I get it. They are trying to show that John is super strong. But that was shown perfectly fine in the books, where John is physically larger and faster than kids his age, and essentially beats them into submission like a brute. This little kid doesn't look like he could beat a one-legged kitten into submission. Halsey seems like visibly moist at seeing this child lift up another child. It almost seems entirely random that they decided to pick John, whereas in the books, Halsey specifically is going to Eridanus 2 to examine John, who meets the biological markers of someone that would be genetically superior to regular humans.
Unlike the others, he has all the genetic markers.
This, again, is shown when John is physically larger and faster than all of his peers. For the most part, this scene does follow the book, albeit with slight deviations. Halsey and Keyes do pretend to be scouting a school for their little girl, and Halsey uses this opportunity to investigate John. Kai, so far, still manages to be my favorite character, but her and Miranda are still very sus to me. I can't look past it. This is fuck me energy. Keyes is complaining about the money spent on setting up a small little camp on Eridanus 2, which is just fucking weird. It makes very little sense why the UNSC would give two shits about how much money is spent on retrieving an alien artifact they suspect is a weapon of mass destruction. Keyes mentions Miranda is running a team of her own now, even though Miranda told him first that Admiral Parangoski gave her her own team.
Right about the time Parangoski created parallel teams.
That's why I called for you. I hear you're running your own team now.
The characters are literally forgetting their own dialogue. Now this moment is interesting because Keyes said he specifically calls Miranda to help ensure that the artifact is removed from the rock. Cortana goes on to compare size to power, and I feel insulted. I guess the basis for artifact power now is relegated to the size of the artifact. Halsey tells Chief to stay away, even though we all know he is going to touch it, because why wouldn't he want to touch it? Back on Madrigal, let me sum up this segment, because again, I don't like this subplot at all. Soren leaves Quan in the desert chained to a broken motorcycle and goes to walk into the desert to find a vehicle. He leaves her chained to a bike, not in shade, with a bit of water, and just walks off. Now, I'm not an expert in desert survival, but he probably just killed her, like she's actually dead, right? He even implies that there's like a deadly wildlife and just basically says good luck. There's a scene where Halsey is ignoring Miranda, and this Halsey ignoring daughter thing is supposed to tell me that Halsey values her work more than her familial relationships, but I could really care less. The dynamic between Miranda and Halsey is about as weird as Halsey and Igor. They don't seem related at all. They're just both existing in the same space together. Kai has some existential conversation with the other Spartans and discovers, oh my god, they're totally brainwashed, like no shit. John notices Kai's hair and demands they have a talk. Of course, before discussing further, both Kai and John need to take off their helmets because the scripts demand it. John berates Kai for doing what he did in trying to explore the world of emotion and smiles and rainbows, and grounds her. And again, the Cortana and Chief dynamic here is actually pretty good. They even reference the books and games here when Cortana mentions that Chief has a lot of empty space in his head. She said that in both of the books. Again, if Cortana's purpose wasn't to mind control the Master Chief, this would be great, but since that's the purpose, it's kind of hard to look past it. The Blessed One is looking for the artifact, and this scene really drives home the absurdity of the character. In previous episodes, she has scolded prophets, and now she scolds an elite. The elite tells her that the artifact is not here, and she says she knows it isn't here, but it was here, so they should be able to find the other artifact because the smaller artifact was here. That just makes no sense at all. This scene just radiates real Karen vibes, and again, this is a subplot that I just don't care for, but like just the way that she talks to the elite seems like she's scolding the manager of a store. We cut back to Quan, who is pushing the bike that she is chained to with seemingly no direction at all, then decides to start smashing her chain with a rock, and eventually it works, because I guess chains are just dirt cheap and can be broken with any old rock you find on the planet. John confides in Keyes, only to discover something I could have guessed from the beginning. Keyes immediately snitches on John, despite this beautiful line,
Chief, you and I have fought alongside each other for many years. None of us would even be here were it not for you. Your concerns are my concerns.
It's under control.
No, it's not. John remembers Catherine in his house while his parents were alive.
After this, Halsey immediately blackmails Paragovsky, and Keyes then demands that Miranda be taken off the project, despite him being the one that asked her to be there. Do you remember that? Remember what I talked about in the beginning? He literally asked, he said he wanted her to be there, and now he wants her gone.
That's why I called for you. I hear you're running your own team now. I figure it's time to show everybody what you can do.
I want Miranda taken off the entire project. Her hands are clean, I want to keep them that way.
The artifact makes a massive sonic boom boom weapon that causes everyone to go ballistic and immediately alerts the Covenant off-world of the artifact's position. This is a cautionary tale, because John would have been incapacitated if he didn't have his helmet on. Oh, also, apparently the Blessed One can get space coordinates to the new artifact by touching a rock that used to house the other artifact. So the sonic boom boom turns off when John takes off his helmet, meaning that wearing the helmet only ever held him back, really. Miranda theorizes that the two artifacts are perhaps not weapons, but a different device entirely, which leads me to believe that I too can become a xenologist by getting my degree printed on the back of a Denny's napkin, because holy shit. It is heavily implied that Halsey is blackmailing Keyes to get Miranda off the project, even though Keyes is the one that kicked her off the project after requesting she be on the project. Okay. This part is just kind of funny to me.
Alright, so I want you to get a truck and get some big, thick straps for it.
I want some big straps for it. Okay, man. John is on a mission to discover why he was made an orphan. He touches the artifact because why not, and gets his memories restored. He was kidnapped. Oh no. Halsey walks around the corner on cue, and John is pretty pissy about it. He lunges for Halsey in a fit of rage, his hand cocked back, and he is flying straight to Falcon punch her in the brain. Which, you know, with enhanced armor and Spartan strength, she'd be as dead as can be. But thankfully, Cortana shuts down his brain, and that completely stops his forward momentum. He just kind of drops out of the air. We cut back to the boring magical plot, and Soren arrives with a sick dune buggy to find that Quan is gone. Gone from where? She's hiding in the dirt, jumps out and tases him. Boom, take that, Soren, bitch. She debates literally murdering him and probably didn't think too much about little Soren Jr. And again, I'm supposed to give a shit about this chick, by the way. Now we finally get to the good part of the series, the action. The objective is to move the artifact from the rock to the ship. The Covenant arrived to take the artifact, and Cortana hits us with the old
slip space rupture detected.
Yep. It's good. It's music. The CGI here is cool. The explosions, the combat. This scene is pretty twisted. Chief makes a I know how the game is played Cortana joke, and honestly, I'm here for it. I love it. This dude gets evaporated in a pink mist, and if the rest of the show kept this pace, it'd be fucking amazing. Halsey finally shows concern for Miranda, but again, I just don't care. Kai has this weird moment where she basically has infinite shields. She is getting shot nonstop and is totally fine. Kai also seems to be having some sort of sensory overload here, which I could be wrong about. Makes me think that they are going to take the Spartans in the direction of the Spartan 3s. The Spartan 3s needing regular medication, or they would flip shit, start having seizures, or just start killing their own allies. So maybe they're combining them, but the point is Kai has infinite shields. This John scene here has some serious Haloid vibes to me, even though he kind of uses a marine as cover. Weirdly choreographed, but pretty cool scene. Then this elite just starts punching Kai, like seriously, like a light punch to the gut. John 1v1s an elite in a bare knuckle combat and has one of those the hero screams while punching someone way too much moment. This shot is just awkward and weird. A brute shows up and just mops the floor with John, and I respect that. This is pretty accurate to how brutes should be portrayed in this show. The brute just jacks the artifact, and then for some reason they send the Blessed One down in an escape pod to infiltrate the humans. She tells them to make it look good, and then she's just totally fine. Like, come on, dude, really? They couldn't hit her once, give her raggedy clothes, do anything to make her look like an actual prisoner. I can't tell if this is lazy writing or just the directors and producers not giving a shit enough to kind of reflect what the script is supposed to show, right? Like, they kind of just expect the viewer to not be able to put together that the Blessed One wants to appear as a prisoner of the Covenant while looking perfectly unharmed, perfectly kempt, just totally untouched, right? Like, the Covenant blew up a teenager's head in episode 1 and murdered children, but they won't punch some white-haired chick once. Apparently, they gave her 3 square meals a day and let her go see a salon. Like, how is this plausible at all? This is just frustrating to me because these combat scenes aren't too bad. So far, they've been the highlight of the show, but the rest of this is just bad writing. So for the most part, this episode was like 50-50, right? Half of it was some solid action, I enjoyed it, and the other half was just bad. Because the half with the plot is bad, the half where it's mindless fighting is pretty good. Isn't that weird?